If you if you or somebody that you know is experiencing domestic violence, you can call 911 or you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Again, that's 1-800-799-7233. It's October, and that means it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month and an opportunity for each of us to join forces to raise awareness about the far-reaching impact of domestic violence. The hashtag Everyone Knows Someone campaign focuses on the theme that everyone knows someone affected by domestic violence, whether they realize it or not. As many of you have heard me share time and time again, this topic is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, having been a survivor of domestic violence for many years, on more than one occasion within the context of a romantic relationship. And what I want to talk to you about tonight is intimate partner violence in the context of intimate terrorism. Before I sort of put these hot things, these hot buttons, if you will, on your radar, I want to share with you some statistics, and I do that every year. I make sure that I cover domestic violence in October, and I make sure that I cover sexual assault awareness in April. And I think that it's extremely important that each of you understand just how gravely important raising awareness about this topic is. So I want to give you these statistics because you may be as shocked as I am. It's like every year, it's like hearing them for the first time. So the domestic violence rate in the United States increased by 2% from 2022 to 2023, which is 784 more incidents than it was the previous year. In 2023, there were 135 victims of domestic violence related homicide, which is a 17.4% increase from 2022. According to the CDC, 41% of women and 26% of men have experienced physical violence, stalking, or contact sexual violence by an intimate partner at some point in their lives. According to the CDC, 16 million women, you heard me right, 16 million women and 11 million men, yes, I said 11 million men, reported experiencing intimate partner violence for the first time before the age of 18. According to Harbor House, victims of intimate partner violence lose a total of 8 billion days of paid work each year, which is the equivalent of 32,000 full-time jobs in this country. According to justice.gov, domestic violence rates are higher for LGBTQI plus individuals, Black individuals, people from communities of color, American Indian and Alaskan Native populations, and those with disabilities. Because I am a woman of color, and because I know other women of color, and I know men of color who have been victims of intimate partner violence, I want to share with you this statistic specific to Black men and women. According to the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, about 40% of non-Hispanic Black women have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime. The rate of IPV is higher for Black women than for white, Hispanic, and Asian women. American Indian and Alaskan Native women are about 46% have experienced IPV. Multiracial and non-Hispanic women, 53.8%. And 44% of lesbian women and 61% of bisexual women have experienced IPV. The rate of severe IPV in interracial couples is 4.5%, 4.5 times higher than the rate of monoracial white couples. Again, if you or anyone that you know is experiencing intimate partner violence, please call 911 or the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. So when we look at intimate terrorism, we also refer to intimate terrorism as coercive controlling violence, or CCV. And it's a pattern of abuse in your relationship where one partner uses violence and other tactics to gain and maintain control over the other partner. So my question to you is, are you the victim or are you the perpetrator? When we look at what intimate terrorism can include, it's intentional, and I think that it's so important to emphasize that word intentional. It's intentional infliction of physical pain or injury on you as the partner, or that you are inflicting on your partner, or any perceived action as having that intent. Now let me clarify the action part. Pushing, shoving, slapping, grabbing, poking, hair pulling, scratching, pinching, restraining, shaking, throwing, biting, kicking, hitting with fist, hitting with an object, burning, poisoning, stabbing, applying force to the throat, cutting off air supply, holding you underwater, using a weapon, or forced sex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Of all of those that I named, I have experienced 15 of those actions. And of all of those, I have inflicted 6 of those. And I know that I'm not on an island by myself. There's so much shame, so much stigma, so much embarrassment and humiliation around intimate partner violence, around domestic violence. And I'm transparent with you because I need you to understand beyond the shadow of a doubt that domestic violence doesn't discriminate. You can be formally educated, uneducated. You can be male, you can be female, you can be young, you can be old. You can be of any race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status. It does not discriminate. And within Black and brown communities, there's so many secrets. There's so much guardedness. Don't even know if that's a word, but it is for right now. There's so much guardedness around Don't ask, don't tell. There's so much guardedness around what goes on in this house stays in this house. There's so much fear around police involvement in our homes, in our communities, in our lives, that it creates this horrible increased level of vulnerability for us as a people when it comes to intimate partner violence. Intimate terrorism also includes intentional infliction of psychological pain or injury from or on your partner, or any action perceived as having that intent: berating, disparaging, degrading, humiliating, interrogating, restricting ability to come and go freely, obstructing access to law enforcement, legal, protective, or medical resources, threatening, harming people or things that victim cares about, restricting access to or use of economic resources, isolating from family, friends, or social support resources, and stalking. I've experienced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've experienced 9 of those, and I've inflicted none of those. It also includes fear of continuing physical injury or emotional abuse resulting from assaultive acts, threats, intimidation, or berating by the abusive partner. And it includes monitoring, following, tracking devices, having someone follow you. Is that you? Are you the perpetrator? Are you the victim? Intimate terrorism is different from situational couple violence, which is when one or both partners may be violent in a specific situation, but neither is trying to exert control over the other. That's what domestic violence is all about at the root. It's all about power and control. It's all about not allowing autonomy. It's about not allowing freedom. It's about restriction and confinement and isolation that can shatter your sense of self, that can destroy your relationships with others, that can adversely impact your employment stability, your mental health. Domestic violence is this huge boulder that has this horrific domino or snowball effect rolling downhill that becomes more and more and more problematic the longer it persists. And what's so additionally horrifying is that it can affect millions of people every year. You have to remember, it can affect anybody. It doesn't discriminate. I emphasize that because anytime I teach or speak on domestic violence, I am reminded of a conversation, or actually numerous conversations that I've had with one of my best friends at different times over the year. And one of the things that she just really is trying to wrap her mind around is how oblivious she was when we were younger. You know, we talk about when we were in high school, when we were in undergrad, and how she just did not realize how much domestic violence was going on around us in our communities, right? Why? Because what goes on in this house stays in this house. And it's not until you get older and start having these more open conversations with people, and you're like, oh yeah, well she was with such and such, and he, beat on her for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Or, oh, she was with him and she used to beat on him all the time. She threw him across the pool table one time at the bar. It's happening. It's happening all around you. And you're doing yourself and your loved ones a disservice if you turn a blind eye to it. I think about how domestic violence is oftentimes depicted in the movies. And a lot of times in the movies, they say actually what I've heard abusers say is like, you made me hit you. If you just would do this, or if you would just do that, or if you wouldn't do this, or if you wouldn't do that, I wouldn't have to hurt you. But I'm here to tell you that domestic violence is a choice on the part of the abuser. I'm not going to in any way dismiss the fact that there are underlying factors that come into play that absolutely can contribute to a person's propensity for abuse and violence. But it is a choice. Some of the things that come into play, which is why, here's the sidebar, why it's so important to actually take time to get to know people before you start having a sexual relationship with them, because sex does complicate things. Sex can blind you to red flags that you should be paying attention to. And oftentimes, what happens is that if you would take the time to get to know someone, you would find out that they experience childhood trauma that hasn't been resolved, that may increase the likelihood that they're an abuser. They may hold certain belief systems about hierarchy and domination in the relationship. They may have witnessed domestic violence as a child, and that's their normal. They might not be the most well-educated person, and the way that they learned to express their emotions is through violence. They may have a personality disorder, or there may be a substance use or abuse problem. There may be cultural attitudes or gender ideologies or low self-esteem. They may be struggling with anger management issues, or they just may have insecurities that result in them being violent to you. Or these things that I've just stated may be a contributing factor to why you're violent to your partner. But the bottom line is, it's a choice. It can take many forms. Those acts that I talked about, those acts can be categorized under sexual abuse, physical abuse, isolation, emotional, verbal, male privilege, female privilege, economic. Categorically, there are areas that the abuse and the maltreatment that you're experiencing or that you're imposing falls under. But it's a choice. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, please call 911 or the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. I want to put some things on your radar because I realize that because there's such stigma around being an outcry witness, there's such stigma and embarrassment and shame and humiliation around admitting that you're being abused or admitting that you're an abuser, I think that it's important for you to know the signs. And my hope for you is that when you know better, you do better. And what I mean by you doing better is that you take the necessary steps to get help and or to be a safe source of help for someone that is an abuser or who's being abused. Because domestic violence is so much more than physical violence, it's important to understand that there's a lot of different ways that harm can be caused. And dominating behaviors can show up in all sorts of ways. So here's some signs that I want you to look for among your family, your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues. Believe it or not, there are some people who are stuck in relationships due to financial abuse. All the finances are in the partner's name. Your name is used for legal documents without your permission. You have an allowance that's often unrealistic and not self-imposed. You're not allowed to work or have income. And don't think for a moment that financial abuse just applies to women. I have worked with male clients that have been victims of financial abuse. Yes, I'm dead serious, with God as my witness. I have worked with male clients that have been victims of financial abuse. Signs of sexual abuse. You're forced into sexual acts or even sex work. Yes, there are partners who pimp out their partners. There absolutely, positively are. It is a real thing. It happens. If you love me, you'll sleep with my boy. If you love me, you'll sleep with my girl. If you love me, you'll do this thing sexually. It goes both ways. You're harmed during intimacy or sexually assaulted. Yes, it happens to men and women. Where women are concerned, birth control is either withheld or forced on you without your consent. Signs of physical abuse. You're physically assaulted. Unwanted rough play occurs, or what I like to call folks sizing you up. You know, the shove, the grab, the strong arm, the squeezing of your leg, hand over the mouth, those sorts of things. Partner aggression is directed at things you care about, like your children, your belongings, your pet, your vehicle. You're punished with deliberate reckless driving. Experienced that. Driving down 95, 100 and some miles an hour, just to terrify me. And then people wonder why I'm jumpy on the highway. That's why. And it was years ago, but it still happened. And my trauma response to this day is if a car goes flying by me really fast, or a motorcycle goes flying by me really fast, or if I'm in the car with somebody that's driving really fast and aggressive, my muscles get tight, my heart starts racing. It's a trauma response. You're forced or pressured into taking substances non-consensually. Your partner withholds food, water, or prevents sleep. Your partner holds you down or keeps you imprisoned. Signs of emotional abuse. Your partner devalues or dismisses your beliefs. Your partner withholds praise or appreciation. Your partner is excessively jealous. Your partner is constantly accusing you of infidelity. Your partner harms themselves or threatens to harm themselves to get you to cooperate. I didn't even tell you how many. There's so many of these that I checked the boxes off on that I experienced, not that I inflicted. Your partner makes you feel as though you deserve to be punished. And that's where I want to take a pause. Because one of the things that often would come up is family members and friends would tell me how stupid I was for staying. And they didn't even realize that their verbal assault was equally abusive. And as I've explained previously on my podcast and in other lives, the reason why I stayed is the reason why so many people stay. I had made so many other mistakes. Hey, Sean, love you back. I had made so many mistakes in my past that I convinced myself that I was deserving of the abuse and the maltreatment that I was being subjected to. And there was nothing that anybody else that loved me and cared about me could tell me differently. I was convinced. I was carrying so much shame and condemnation and guilt and embarrassment and humiliation for the things that I had done to cause other people that I profess to love and care about emotional pain, that I convinced myself that the abuse and the maltreatment that I was experiencing was me reaping what I had sown. I convinced myself that it was my comeuppings. But I am here to tell you, as a living witness and survivor, nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody. There is no justification that you can give as to why someone deserves to be abused. Signs of verbal abuse. Your partner insults and demeans you. Your partner belittles you in front of others. You're called names. Your partner yells, screams, or rages at you. What I've learned in doing this work all these years is that, particularly within dysfunctional couples, that's a way of life. That is a way of life in some people, and it is so dysfunctional, it is so unhealthy, it is so unacceptable, it's so tragic, because, again, it shatters one's sense of self. And to add insult to injury, so many of these couples have children that are bearing witness to these horrific acts. And it perpetuates. It becomes this vicious cycle of adversity and trauma that is carried on from generation to generation in some families. And then people wonder why people have all of this dysfunction, trauma. We have choices. You don't have to repeat the bad things that you experienced or saw growing up. You have a choice. You just have to choose to do something different. Signs of control and isolation. Your phone calls are being clocked. Your text messages, your emails are constantly being monitored. Your partner demands that you prove where you were and, what you were doing. And again, Are you the victim? Or are you the perpetrator? You can't wear certain clothes. You have to wear your hair a certain way. Or, if you're a female, you're not allowed to wear makeup, or you have to wear makeup. Your partner guilts you or punishes you for trying to express your individuality. Is that you? Are you the victim? Are you the perpetrator? Do you know somebody that this is their experience? There's also the issue of patriarchal domination. Patriarchal domination is where your partner refuses to do certain woman-only things or man-only things if you have matriarchal domination. That's a thing. It's not, I honestly haven't seen it in the research, but I'm telling you as someone who's been doing this work for years, I have clients where the matriarchal domination in the relationship is there, and it's just as bad as the patriarchal domination. Some of these women out here are just as much a trip and just as dysfunctional and violent and vicious as some of the men are. It's disgusting, no matter who's perpetrating. Where patriarchal domination is concerned, you're expected to behave in a submissive way. But when you're in a relationship where the female is the dominant, the man, is being dominated. He's being treated like a dog or a child or a servant. That's why I keep telling y'all that happy wife, happy life stuff is for the birds. It's BS. It's toxic. It's a toxic ideology. It is an unhealthy mindset. It's disgraceful. And there's no place for it in a healthy, sustainable, fulfilling relationship. You're not allowed to contribute to decisions. And of course, that can be matriarchal or patriarchal domination. Are you the victim? Or are you the perpetrator? Do you know someone that, as I've shared these things with you, you're checking off the boxes because you realize that this is what you're seeing in your sister, this is what you're seeing in your girlfriend, or this is what you're seeing in your brother's relationship with it, or your son or your daughter. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't make a difference how healthy the environment may have been. I didn't grow up in a domestic violent home. I didn't. But I sure enough experienced it. Doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is. Doesn't matter how saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, and fire baptized you are. Pastors beat their wives, and first ladies beat their husbands. Yes, I said it, and it's real. Domestic violence is in the church. Praise the Lord, hallelujah. Clean yourself up. We're going to church. Fix your face. It's a thing, people. I'm not just making this up. I'm telling you what I know. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know to be true. Everything that I have shared with you thus far, I know it to be true because I've seen it, I've lived it, I've counseled it. It's real. So what do? How do we move forward? How do we get to a place and space where people can get safe and stay safe? We got to get a safety plan. You have to have a safety plan because safety is paramount. A safety plan can help you outline actionable steps to reduce the risk of harm and danger during the breakup or the separation process. And remember I said in the beginning, personally and professionally, I'm aware of female and male victims. One of my relatives died at the hands of his female partner. So don't think that it doesn't happen. It does. There are plenty of women that are incarcerated for killing their partners. Just like there are plenty of men that are incarcerated for injuring or killing their partners. It goes both ways. That safety plan needs to include a person to contact for help or shelter. You need to have important items. You need to be able to have steps to protect your children. And here's the thing. It's not just about, females escaping with children. There's times where the woman is the one that's detached and the man has to escape with the children. I want you to understand, don't let arrogance or pride trick you into thinking that because you're a man, you can't end up dead at the hands of your partner. That is insane. And it's dangerous because you're going to go to sleep, you're going to eat, and bullets don't discriminate. Don't let arrogance and your masculinity, your machismo, don't let that make you think that you can't be a victim of domestic violence and end up dead. Because you can. Just like women can. You got to have a safety network. If you're in a relationship where your partner, regardless of what your gender is, your partner is abusing you, folks, we got to put pride to rest here. You can't be so proud that you end up dead or beat to a pulp because you're so ashamed to let folk know that you're in this situation. Your life is more valuable than anything. Your life is more valuable than anything. The most recent loss of a friend he died. He died not at the hands of the partner, but at the hands of the partner's other partner. That still falls under the umbrella of domestic violence. There is no amount of money that any of us close to him could have paid him to believe that that was the way that he was going to leave this earth. But he did. He ended up being a part of a domestic situation that cost him his life. And she's still very much alive. Both men are gone. You got to have that safety network. You have to remember why you left when you get to that place in space. Why are you going back if nothing has changed? Why are you going back just because you got lip service about how I'm going to do better and be better? We call that the honeymoon stage of domestic violence. Proof is proof. The mouth will say anything. What are they showing you? Have they gone to therapy? Have they put it on the altar? Have they gone to anger management classes? Have they stopped drinking? Have they stopped doing drugs? Have they stopped hanging around with other people that influence them to abuse you? You got to take all of that into consideration. I'm not saying don't go back if you've left. I'm saying make sure that it's safe to go back and you're not. That's right. Somebody else is going to say it's the cycle of violence. It's that vicious cycle. You have to see, and I'm not just talking about, oh, well, the last 3 times I saw him or her, she didn't threaten me, or he didn't threaten me, or she didn't hit me, or I'm talking lasting change. Lasting change. You got to put yourself first. I don't care whether you're male or female. You have to make your own well-being a priority. You have to. You're so busy loving them more than you love yourself. You're so busy dealing with the pride that keeps you stuck in embarrassment and shame and humiliation that you're not putting yourself first. You're not seeing the value in you. You're not seeing the value in your life. You're not seeing the value in your sanity. You're not seeing the value in your financial stability and security. You have to put yourself first. You got to trust your gut. If your gut's telling you, I mean, for real, we ain't talking about making excuses. If your gut is sure enough telling you something just don't seem right, I don't think he or she has changed, and I probably shouldn't go over there, please don't go over there. Before you come up missing, or dead, or in intensive care. Your gut don't lie. Your gut is your internal alarm system. Listen to it. You have to be able to get back to your independence. You've heard me say before that relationships are about two unique individuals coming together and creating a union, even if you're not married. When you stay in these situations, you lose you. You have to stay independent within the context of you're not in this enmeshed, or what we call this fused situation where every aspect of your existence is validated by this other person. In other words, I'm nothing without him, or I'm nothing without her. I can't imagine my life without them. You better start. Be independent in a healthy way within the context of the relationship. You teach people how to treat you. And here's one that I added that has nothing to do with what I have studied all these years in research. It's something that I did on top of all of the other things. Consider taking a martial arts or self-defense training course. And that can go both ways, because you might not believe me. You don't have to. I'm a whole bunch of things, but a liar ain't one of them. There are men out here who get jammed up because the woman is fighting on them, and they're trying to get her up off of him, and they end up injuring and still end up going to jail because now she's got X, Y, or Z. Whereas just because you're a man and you're stronger and you might be able to restrain her doesn't mean that you're doing it properly. Self-defense can teach you the appropriate way to protect yourself without inflicting harm in a way that lands you in jail. And for women, don't think that just because he's bigger than you that you can't get him up off of you. And you don't have to kill him. You don't have to kill him. Don't kill nobody. So the question presented to me on Instagram is, you always hear that leaving an abusive relationship is hard. Do you agree? I agree that it can be. It can be hard, and it's not a one-off decision. There's a lot. That's a great question, by the way. There's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration when you are preparing to leave. But one thing that I do believe is that you have to leave. I do believe that, because every single solitary time you run the risk of losing your life. And you know what people say? Oh, I can handle it. I can handle it. I can handle it. It's going to cost you something. You don't want the ultimate cost to be your life. but it also cost you your peace of mind. It cost you your self-esteem. It cost you your self-worth. It cost you money. I read to you the stats on how much time and money people lose from work because of the injury that's sustained, or because the windows got bust out of your car, or whatever egregious act was taken that resulted in you not being able to go to work. Sometimes you're afraid to go to work, right? I said, one of the situations that I went through is there was an occasion where actually there was more than a couple of occasions, but two in particular come to mind, that my partner came to my job. In one of the occasions, the doors to the building were locked because I knew that he was coming, and my staff was like, "Oh, this ain't happening today," but I still had to pay for it when I got home. But in the other instance, I was held freaking hostage in my office for hours because I begged the police to not kill him. I can talk him off the ledge. Just give me time. But what was unwise about that decision is that I was locked in an office with my abuser, no windows, and even though he didn't kill me, he could have. So you have to consider the big picture when preparing to leave. But to stay in an abusive relationship, there's nothing wise about that. There's so much damage. And then there's additional damage that comes into play when you have children. You can find support by calling 211 in your state, no matter where you are. The states have a 211. That's where you can utilize that number for resources in addition to the national hotline. And again, that national hotline is 1-800-799-7233, or for the hearing impaired, 800-787-3224. The National Domestic Violence Hotline also offers online chat feature as well as the option to text by sending START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. And additional resources can be found by calling the National Center for Victims of Crime at 855-484-2846. In the event of an emergency, dialing 911 or contacting your local authorities can provide immediate assistance. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, there are resources available. If you're not in the United States, you can contact the United Nations Critical Incident Stress Management Unit at UNDSSCISMU@un.org. I can't stress the importance of this enough. All of my live this month are going to be on various aspects of domestic violence and how to recognize it, what to do about it, how to get out of it, how to heal from it. I've lived it. I've seen it. I've counseled for it. And I am here to tell you that it is an ugly, 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 ugly experience. And it does not have to be your experience. I hope I answered your question on Instagram. Give me a thumbs up if you don't mind, so that I know. If you have any additional questions, I'll be more than happy to take them for the next couple of minutes. Because we've got to do something different. We have to do something better. We have to break this cycle. We have to. The damage is long lasting, and the longer it is that you take to get out of it, the harder it is to heal from it. But I am here to tell you, I am a living, breathing witness that the healing is very much possible, and you can be a stronger, healthier, better version of yourself on the other side of it. But you have to break the cycle. You're worth it. You deserve it. Nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody. So it doesn't look like there's any additional questions. Prepare your questions for me for next week. Fire them at me. I'll answer them in real time. As I said, I'm going to spend the whole month talking about this very important topic and raising as much awareness as I possibly can. The next question on Instagram is, do I consider myself a battered woman? No, I consider myself a survivor. I've never considered myself a battered woman. What I have said is that there was a period in time in my life where I was subjected to abuse, neglect, and maltreatment. But I'm very, very big on healing. I'm very, very big on survival. I'm very, very big on winning. And I know that might sound competitive to some people. It's not my intention to make it sound competitive. I just refuse to be defeated. God made me this way. I'm going to fight to win. I just have no interest in being a victim. I would much rather be a victor. The next question is, do I believe that the battered woman syndrome is a real concept? I do. I do believe that there are people that have been battered so long that it adversely impacts the psyche. I think that people suffer abuse, neglect, and maltreatment so long that they don't think straight, they don't behave in healthy ways, they just believe all of the lies that the batterer has told them. And because abuse, I believe by design, is meant to break you, I think it does just that. I think that abuse can, in some people's cases, I think that it can fracture the psyche beyond natural repair. And what I mean by that is, for those of you that navigate life within a spiritual belief system, I believe that people can experience so much abuse, neglect, and maltreatment that it takes God to heal them and to deliver them and to restore them to a place and space of a sound mind. And I know that that's not everybody's belief system. That's certainly my belief system, but I don't force my beliefs onto others. But yes, I do believe that it is a real concept, and it's unfortunate that it happens, but I believe that it definitely happens. Any other questions? All right. Well, if you think of any other questions after I say farewell, save them for next week. Save them for one of these weeks. Like I said, the whole month of October, I am dedicating to domestic violence awareness, and I'm going to be speaking on a variety of different topics that fall under that umbrella. But thank you for tuning in this evening. Share the live with family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, or whatever. Tell them to tune in too. You're welcome. As I always say, it is truly my heart's desire to turn the adversities of my life into opportunities for growth and development for you. And that's what this is all about for me. It's all about educating you and empowering you and letting you know that regardless of what topic I'm speaking on at any given time, this information is purposed to educate, empower, and liberate you from the things that have been keeping you bound and holding you back from achieving your full potential and your best self. So I'll see you next week. Y'all have a great evening. Bye-bye.